Welcome to the Generation Hustle podcast, a show that explores the world of business, entrepreneurship, and culture, all centered around the millennial. I'm your co-host Sherston, alongside my good friend Ellen, and today we speak with Troy Burtch from Great Lakes Brewery. A fiercely independently owned and operated brewery, Great Lakes is celebrating over 30 years in the craft beer business, making them one of the oldest craft breweries in Ontario. They specialize in producing flavorful beers that will be sure to awaken your taste buds with each sip. From unique seasonal ales, bottle conditioned releases, and premium lagers, GLB produces a variety of products to be enjoyed by everyone. So today, we speak with Troy, the marketing and communications manager, about his journey into the beer and spirits world. He details the importance of local breweries and how they compete in the ever-popular craft beer space. Troy also explains the amazing pivot the brewery made at the start of the global pandemic, where they recalled their beer kegs and began producing hand sanitizers to support the community. GLB is a true success story, starting out of a strip mall in Brampton, Ontario, to becoming one of Canada's most beloved and recognized craft breweries. We hope you enjoyed this fun conversation and highly recommend you crack open a cold one before you hit play. Hey, Troy, thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate you taking the time here. So we just wanted to dive right into your story and into your personal journey with Great Lakes Brewery. So maybe we could start off with just your early days and how it all got started. So can you tell us about what about the beer industry besides beer itself appealed to you and kind of the grassroots of starting Great Lakes Brewery?
Yeah, for sure. So first things first, I'm gonna crack a beer.
Oh, good.
I can't do an interview without a beer, and I'm drinking Absacker. It's a nice German Helles that we have available at our retail store and online right now for home delivery. So, cheers for having me on, and we'll get at her.
Thanks. I actually tried to go get a Canuck Pale Ale, but they ran out at the LCBO. So obviously a good sign, but
Yeah.
Selling lots, yeah.
I had a late night, so I'm just having coffee, but cheers.
Cheers. I've been with Great Lakes since 2012. The company was founded in 1987 in Brampton, Ontario by Bruce Cornish and four other gentlemen who wanted to have a brewery around the Great Lakes, 5 different breweries. And by 1991, they realized they couldn't do that. They ran into some financial hardships, and Peter Bullitt Sr. swooped in, bought the brewery, brought Bruce Cornish with him, moved the brewery to Etobicoke, to our present day location, and we've been hammering out beers ever since. My background on beer, I mentioned I joined Great Lakes in 2012, but since I was in grade 6, and I can remember the day, and I have the long version of this story, but in grade 6, my stepfather he owned a sanitation business, and we would go out and pick up curbside garbage and recycles. And the place where I grew up, in and around that area, a lot of cottagers, not tourists, a lot of cottagers. And so I'd see all these really unique beer bottles and beer cans, places from Belgium and Germany that, the people around my area would be drinking, the big domestic multinational lagers, but none of these beers. So I started collecting beer bottles and beer cans and said, when I grow up one day, I want to drink my wall. So I was probably the only grade 6er I know that had 300 bottles of beer in cans on my wall, empty and clean, of course. But my mother didn't have a problem with that, and I think that started my fascination of the beverage industry. Fast forward many years, I went to Georgian College in Aurelia, Ontario. I was the student council president, which meant we got to run and operate the student bar. And so I got to deal with different beer brands and their reps to see who we wanted to bring in and sell beer on tap. And Steam Whistle was a brand new brewery. They came in and they said, we're not going to do deals. We're not going to give you this, that, or the other thing. We're going to sell you beer. You're going to sell beer. People are going to enjoy it. And that really, I still remember that to this day. We went with Steam Whistle, and I had that first drink of theirs, and it was like an epiphany. I was like, this tastes so much better than that, for lack of a better term, that other stuff that
we know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We know what you're talking about.
And that started it, really. I was going to college for policing, and after I graduated, I was working for the Ontario Provincial Police as a civilian in the 911 dispatch and call taker, and then I moved over to a chief firearms position. And then I moved to Halifax for a year, took a year off life with my then girlfriend, now wife, went out to Halifax and got a job working for Alexander Keith's and the Olin Beer Company,
Mm.
which is Labatt Breweries. They taught me so much about beer, and I decided when they were running me through all these technical programs and how to sell beer, how to taste it, how to pour it, I said, why am I drinking it? And I should be supporting the local independent brewers down the road that are putting their heart and soul into creating these beers with all natural ingredients, that are taking the time to select hops from different parts of the world that are going to really give it big aromas and big body, big taste, big flavor. And I started writing a blog. The blog took off. I moved back to Ontario, started writing for a national beer publication, started running the Canadian Beer Awards, Brewing Awards with that company, and started Toronto Beer Week in 2010. And that was a 9-day festival in Toronto that we sold a couple years ago. And then in 2012, I made the jump to say, you know, I'm going to focus on one brewery. I'm going to work with
Right.
one brewery, and Great Lakes was my number one choice. And as luck would have it, they hired me. So that's the long-winded version of how I got into beer and how I landed at Great Lakes.
That's a great story. Like I feel like every avenue that you went through, there was beer somewhere. So it was kind of like a sign that you were you were stuck to this industry.
Yeah, I was, you know, and looking back on it, I always wanted to be a police officer. It was like my lifelong goal. Um, and once I started working for the OPP, even as a civilian, I realized this might not be for me. I like the flexibility
Mhm.
and freedom of, I have that entrepreneur spirit, even though I don't own Great Lakes Brewery and I don't own a business. Toronto Beer Week was kind of my foray into doing that. And
Right.
I work at Great Lakes as our marketing and communications manager, but I put in time like I am an investor. I believe in the company so much, and I believe in the owner of the company, Peter Bullitt, that I don't work for the company. The company is part of me, and I'm part of it. So that's how I view it. I pour my soul into the brewery.
For sure, yeah, and that's the winning philosophy for any business, I would say as well. So you mentioned obviously that you started at a Brampton, or Great Lakes Brewery did. So can we talk about that as well? And you're on the marketing side there. So with the Great Lakes Brewery story, obviously they came from a small strip mall in Brampton to one of the most popular craft breweries in Canada, which to us is amazing because we're from Brampton and not a lot of things blow up like that. So can you talk to us about the strategy behind that and what about the brand helped kind of get to that level?
So we have a long and interesting history, unlike any craft breweries, in my opinion, that are out there in Canada. So we were one of the first waves of craft brewers to reemerge after post prohibition. So in
Mhm.
Ontario, prohibition was in effect from 1917 to I think it was 1926. So during that time, a lot of the mom and pop and independent regional breweries, they were either sold off to the bigger companies like Labatt, Carling O'Keefe, or Carling, the Molsons of the day, and you started to see the homogenization of beer.
Mhm.
And you get to the 1950s and 60s, and you're seeing just very standard light lager beers available across Canada. Molson Canadian introduced Molson Canadian. Labatt introduced Labatt Blue. There was Carling Black Label and a bunch of these big multinational loggers here in the country. You hit 1984 and you start to see this wave starting to come across Canada, and it started in the West Coast, then the East Coast, and then Ontario kind of came in right 1984, 1985. Great Lakes in 1987. So again, that first wave of craft brewers post-prohibition. And as I mentioned off the top, the guys who started the brewery back then, they had this goal of opening one brewery around the Great Lakes. So there was 5 co-founders. They each wanted to get one brewery going, then move on to another, and
Mhm.
get it going. But you didn't have social media back then. You had to rely on radio, television, and we all know how expensive that is today. Now think about back then when you're trying to convince people to drink craft beer. It's not telling people now to drink craft beer, it's drink my craft beer. But back then it was like try craft beer. It's so different than what
Right.
you're accustomed to, because generations of people came up without tasting what a good India Pale Ale or a New England Pale Ale or a good robust porter was like. So Great Lakes open. By 1990, they were falling on some financial hardships out in Brampton. And Peter Bullitt, who was in the construction business, was met up with one of the co-founders, Bruce Cornish, and decided, I'm going to invest. He always wanted to be in the booze business, not necessarily beer, but he saw it as an opportunity. And Great Lakes back then, while they were winning awards for their beers, they were brewed using malt extract. So it was more like a syrup that was fermenting out.
Okay.
And when they moved it to present day location in Etobicoke, they switched that up to all grain, all natural
Right.
brewing. And from 92 to about 2000, the brewery had some pretty tough times. They were draft only, no retail sales, getting out to as many bars and restaurants across the province as they could. But back then, craft brewers were taxed at an exorbitant rate, and the brewery almost went under a couple times. They had an infection in the brewery, which is custom in any brewery. Cleanliness and cleaning is a big thing, and so they had some struggles in the early days. Fast forward to the 2000 onwards, it wasn't really until about 2010 that Great Lakes kind of really put their name on a map and got their beers out all across Ontario. But I could tell that story too after, if you're interested in that, for sure.
Yeah, we'll get to that for sure once we establish some other stuff. I think that's a fascinating story of how something so small, but it's been there for like 30 plus years. But again, with any business, there's ups and downs that everyone has to kind of factor in. So I know beer and the beer industry specifically is probably one of the most competitive out there, especially now with so many craft brewers out there. First, I kind of want to understand the definition of what a craft brewer truly is, because we just think like it's just another beer or whatever. But what's the true definition of a craft brewer?
If I could answer that question for you, I would be a very rich man. Um, Everyone has a different definition of what a craft beer should be and what a craft brewery is, and I think that's the beautiful aspect of the term. Um, I look at it as independent, locally made, and you use your natural ingredients, and so that's
Mhm.
kind of like the core basic elements to me of what makes craft beer craft beer. But it's also about community. We bring in people from all over Ontario, but we have a very solid base in the Etobicoke GTA community that we bring into our home essentially, and we do things for our community. We support our community,
Mhm.
and I think that is the epitome of craft beer, and we do it well, and we firmly believe in building communities will build a business. So I can't give you a definition. If I the Coles notes again would be independent, local, that care about quality, freshness, ingredients, and all the good stuff. So one of the things that sets us apart from a lot of our comrades in the beer industry is our hashtag. We use it everywhere. Fresh GLB.
Mhm.
We firmly believe that the beer consumers in Ontario should be consuming should be fresh. So there is a reason why you said you went to the LCBO on the Ray of Canuck.
Yeah.
We sell a lot of beer. Our team works extremely hard on it, but we also make sure that we're rotating stock very efficiently. So that store that you went to might have got something on Tuesday and they ran out by the
Mhm.
weekend. Not optimal for us, but that means our customers are buying it fresh. They're drinking it fresh, going back and replenishing the week after. So everything we do is about freshness, and I think that is the ethos of Great Lakes. But it also speaks to a loose definition of craft beer.
Right. And so what do you think kind of the moment, like I know in the recent like years, I say early 2000s or mid 2000s, there's been an explosion of craft breweries, whether it's like America or Canada. Why do you think that's the case? Is it just like more of a fascination of a passion towards say a craft brewery, or is there certain economic factors also that play along with it?
Well, a lot of people don't talk about this, but in the 90s there was a big explosion of craft breweries
Mm.
as well. So that first wave that came in the early to mid 1980s, And then by the end of the 1980s and early 90s, you saw breweries starting to crop up. And, like I said, I come from an area near Orillia, Ontario. They had a little brew pub that folded not long after, but a region started to open up these breweries. And the theory is that a lot of people, and while I say Bay Street types, they were sinking money into it because it was a cool thing to do. We're going to make our own beer. We're going to have our own beer company. We're going to grow it one day and sell it to one of the big companies and make millions of dollars. By the late 1990s, a lot of those breweries shut down. So there was a lot of brewing equipment out there for really passionate homebrewers to buy. They started buying it, and that's where we saw that second wave of breweries, kind of the mid 2000s, is the opening places like Steam Whistle and the Mill Streets, Black Oak and Cameron's. And so I think it was a combination of hearts in the right place in the mid 2000s. We're seeing other breweries be successful doing this. We're seeing the explosion of US craft brewing markets in all states growing exponentially overnight. And so I think a lot of people took the business acumen with their home brewing acumen, tried to put something together to create a business in their local community. We move forward now into the mid 2010s and onwards, and we're seeing a lot more people opening breweries, not in big markets like Toronto or Kitchener-Waterloo has an explosion, but places like small towns,
Right.
that might have 25 to 30,000 people are
Right.
now having 2 to 3 breweries open up in those regions. So I think people have understood that you bring a brewery to a community, you're going to grow your downtown, you're going to keep people focused on shopping local. And so it's a whole combination of things, but I do believe that the explosion has to do with passion and a real thirst for craft beer, to be honest.
Right. Right.
And
so
it's a cool industry to work in.
Yeah. And that brings us to our next point here. So you obviously mentioned like Great Lakes Brewery has kind of exploded in the recent years. And so what did kind of your focus on the marketing strategy compared to like in the early days versus now? And like, how's that kind of strategy helped you guys kind of really grow? I think one of the things that always comes to mind when I think Great Lakes Brewery is those amazing designs that you guys have on your cans. It really stands out from all the other beers. Like I'm walking by and I instantly see these cool designs and it makes me intrigued. Like, let me try this out. So is that kind of a factor as well in terms of your strategy of growing the brand?
Well, you just nailed it, right? That's what we're looking to get people to do. So we want someone to walk through an LCBO or a grocery aisle and see our can, pick it up, and kind of chuckle. That's a fun name, or
Yeah.
that's a fun drawing. A lumberjack riding a log going down the water. Okay, what's it all about? They turn and read the back. We talk about it's an American style beer, but we're Canadian. He's a lumberjack wearing plaid. So stereotypical of us. What have we done? And then we apologize on the copy on the back. We say we're sorry. And so you guys both just had a chuckle there. That's exactly what we want people to do
Yeah.
while they're standing in the LCBO beer section. And people will then tend to put that beer into their cart, get it home, crack it open. They have an emotional connection to it now because they took the time to look and read it. So we say you get it home, you get 2 sips in you, we have you. We think you'll be a repeat customer because we believe in the product itself. Our brewers are some of the best brewers in this country, and we have refined and defined some of the styles that we put out there. And so I do firmly believe that our artwork with our names and our copy really drive home sales, but also gain and retain new customers and old customers alike. So that's one aspect. But with a focus on marketing too, it's all about, I've said it before, community. How can we build up our community? Because we always talk about in craft beer, support us, buy local, come and support local breweries. If you don't buy Great Lakes, go buy Black Oak and Etobicoke. Everyone wants to build up the community, but then we have to turn it on its head and say, well, if we want your support, we need to support you. So
Right.
we get involved in the community, whether it be for fundraisers, charity drives. We just did one recently with a group called the Southern Ontario Beer Boys, where we just gave them the space at Great Lakes, and they had a Cans for Kids empties drive where they collected a whole bunch of empties, and they raised a ton of money. Like $1,700 doesn't seem like a lot of money.
Yeah,
That's
but
over
there's a lot of cans. Yeah.
17,000 empties.
Yeah.
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 So our community showed up in droves to help out with that. And so we've worked really hard over the years to build up the community, which then helps drive sales. So that's one aspect of that, but also fun is another. So fun kind of ties in with the branding and the marketing of our beers, with the colorful labels and the artwork. But we do things a little differently at Great Lakes. We do what we want to do.
Mhm.
We when we say we don't take ourselves seriously, we do, but we don't. We take the beers seriously, but we go into work to have fun. If
Right.
you're not having fun in a job, get out of the job. So everyone that shows up to Great Lakes has one goal in mind, and that is to end your day a little better than it was yesterday.
Right.
And that could be by naming a new beer, which is a very team collaborative effort, or it could be just sitting around with the group at the end of the day, having a beer and talking about hockey or uh, politics. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. We are a fun group that do fun things because it's fun to do that.
Right.
And then the last one, I don't love the term. Everyone uses it. And it's an overused word, but authenticity. We're a very authentic brewery. We listen to people, we talk to people, we engage with people. We rely a lot on social media, and not just to spread our message, but to talk. And it's a two-way street. So social listening is a big aspect of our marketing overall every year, because we want to hear what you're saying. If you're telling us that you're not a particular fan of this one beer, we
Right.
will look inwards and say, are other people saying that? What could we do better? How could we approach the market differently? Maybe the colors weren't the right colors. So um, we don't hold. I guess we use social media as pretty much a test ground for new products and brands. So it kind of wraps up into fun, community, authentic, and that social listening engagement.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that kind of also brings me to my next question here is how important is the brand to the longevity of a craft brewer specifically? You've obviously mentioned community, the culture within the company as well. But in terms of longevity, we see a lot of these craft brewers potentially die out. But how important is that brand factor in terms of having customers keep on buying from you guys?
I think it's huge. You want repeat customers. You want
Hmm.
to get new customers, but you want to keep customers coming back to you time after and time after. And we're a very trusted brand. And we're trusted because of the items I just mentioned previously, that we are a very community based organization. I would say sometimes, and it's cheesy, but we're not in the beer business. We're in the people business,
Right.
where we want to help you discover a brand new beer or a brand new bar that sells our beer, um, that makes an impact on your life. And it sounds more grandiose than it is, but if you have a Canuck Pale Ale and it's like, whoa, this is really good. This is a beer that has so much flavor, but it's light bodied, and I'm drinking it outside around a cottage and a campfire. Now you're creating memorable moments, and it all has to do with a beer, a brand. I would go back to the previous answer and say it all is combined with everything, the authentic,
Mhm.
trusted, community, collaborative. We work with other craft breweries out there in the market. Um, at the end of the day, it's not like Labatt and Molson, right, who don't like
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
We'll work with our neighbor down the street. We'll give them cans if they need some empty cans to do a pilot something, and we'll say, hey, can you just throw us some hops instead? And or hey, do you want to come over and brew a beer with us? Let's
Yeah.
do this thing together. So having our brand associated with other breweries, having it fun, having it authentic, doing that listening piece, coming up with the fun labels and names, everything is in together into a pod, and it's just, we think we've found that right ingredient that just brings everything together. And people then go out and say Great Lakes is a trusted name in this industry,
Mhm.
who work with everyone, and at the end of the day they might be a little bigger than we are, but they're a craft brewery in every
Right.
sense of the word.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I think I love the viewpoint. And this is like the first time I'm hearing someone is just like, we're not fighting with the competition technically. We work with them, where versus like, larger companies are usually going at war with each other in terms of gaining market share. So I find that pretty interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, it's like we do compete with
Oh, yeah.
our other
Yeah.
breweries, but at the end of the day, we might lose out on, say, a bar or restaurant. Which go and support your bar and restaurant right now, your local, order takeout to get some beers to go, because they're really suffering right now. But if a new bar opens and we're going in and we have to compete for a line, or we have to try to, we want to get our sales reps out there and get more marketplace or market share. But if they go in and they lose to another brewery, at the end of the day, they'll still have a beer with each other,
Right.
because it is, if craft brewing can, what's the term, like a rising tide lifts all boats. If
Right.
we can all together achieve more market share for craft breweries, that's only better for us at the end of the day. Going back to the 80s, remember I said, they could only rely on radio, TV, newspaper ads, which were
Yeah.
dominated by the big brewers. Like, imagine trying to buy TV space for Hockey Night in Canada or something that was
Yeah.
dominated by the
Yeah.
big brewers. So how do you get your voice out there? Now it's craft beer and craft brewers and local independent breweries. Everyone knows who they are in their own neighborhood and their own community. So if we all work together to get that craft beer term out there, however you want to
Yeah.
define it, it's better for everyone in the long run.
Right. And then why do you think, like, specifically, I know individuals in our age, the millennials and Gen Z, are particularly interested in craft beers. Do you kind of fundamentally see some, like, maybe psychological factors and or branding factors that play a factor in that? Or is it something just, it's a lighter beer, it's more fresh, or those kind of things going on?
I think it's everything. I think it's supporting local.
Mhm.
I think it's they saw their parents drink craft beer, and it's the first real generation of parents that were drinking local, independently made beer post prohibition. So, um, the region I grew up in, I didn't see that. I
Yeah.
mentioned finding the recyclables on the side of the road, going, what are all these different beers? But people who grew up drinking Upper Canada, which is now gone, or they grew up drinking Creemore. They grew up drinking Amsterdam. Well, they've had kids, and their kids are of drinking age now, so they've seen the mixed variety of beers throughout the years in their parents' homes. So I think that's a big driving factor that no one considers when we talk about how come millennials and Gen Z and how come they're drinking craft, and I think that's a big factor. The second one is, and I don't want to say it's anti-establishment, because
Mhm.
that sounds corny, but
Right.
I think it is. I think it's like they see Molson as what Molson would be now, is a big conglomerate brewery that's has tentacles all over the world, and same with Labatt. Um, Great companies that started in Canada, and they employ some amazing people. But at the end of the day, I don't think their core values align with the core values of the younger audience
Mhm.
today. And I could go and sit at Great Lakes Brewery on a beautiful, not right now because of COVID, but
Yeah.
you could go and sit on our patio on a beautiful day with friends, family, see other people of like-minded age and backgrounds and diversity. And that's what craft beer does. It brings people together from all different backgrounds, because it's great product,
Yeah.
but also back to the community again. They grew up seeing Great Lakes participate in the Santa Claus Parade in Etobicoke. And when they're of drinking age, they want to go check it out. So
Yeah.
it's a combination of a whole bunch of things.
Right.
But I think the one overlooked thing is their parents were likely craft beer drinkers
Right.
in that first wave of post
Yeah.
prohibition brewers.
Yeah. You spoke to social media. Like, yeah, Sherston, let me ask you this. Like, how many times you see on social media, like, it's not one of the big guys. It's always like a craft brewer or something unique.
Always.
It's
Yep.
always that with our generation. It's always interesting and appealing. I always find it pretty cool that, craft brewers have found a great market to obviously, get into with that, our demographic, and just the connection, like you mentioned, that whole community aspect and everything going on is
Yeah,
so powerful.
but it's also it also shows, and through social media, it shows who you are. So if
Mhm.
Right.
you see a lot of social from millennials drinking at a patio in Etobicoke at Great Lakes, or they're at a cottage, or they're at the beach or whatever, and they have Canuck Pale Ale, or our Karma Citra or Thrust, and they're putting that on Instagram or Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat. It's showing that they support local independent business, and then their fans, their friends and fans and followers see that too, and it's a rippling effect that
Right.
it's showing that you support independent business and you support local entrepreneurs, and you're, again, that word, anti-establishment. So
Yeah, for sure. How I kind of relate that, at least the community aspect of it, is like, remember when Heineken started labeling their bottles with the country that they're in, and it was kind of like you felt like some sort of connection to it. But craft brewers take that a step further, because it's like, oh, this is brewed in like it started in Brampton. Like, I want to support that, right? So it kind of
yeah,
brings that community aspect another step forward, and I love that.
it's I always say, and as a marketer, we always talk about emotional connection.
Right.
And so we have an emotional connection with our customers. We get to know them by name. So that's something that the big multinational breweries can't do. So on any particular day, customers could walk into our retail store, and I walk down from my office and I walk through the store, and I could run into 5 people that I've met either online or in person. So we do we take our messaging offline. So you have to be, that word again, authentic, but you take your online presence and you take it offline. You take your offline presence and you put it online. If the two don't jive, then people, consumers, customers are going to see right through you. So
Right.
we take that to heart, and we understand, okay, yeah, you want to support this business because you grew up in Brampton and it's a cool story. We're creating that emotional connection between you and the brand, and then we're going to create that personal connection between you and me, or you and our brewer, or you and our retail staff,
Yeah.
and that sells beer.
Right.
For sure, yeah. And just there, before my question there, you mentioned that obviously this year COVID has changed a lot of things, and that's kind of where I wanted to take the conversation here. So with that community aspect, one of the coolest things I thought with the Great Lakes Brewery was that once COVID hit, like, you guys made a big pivot to kind of support the current situation. So I know that you guys recalled a bunch of kegs of beer from restaurants and bars, and then you pivoted to making hand sanitizers. So can you talk to us about that? How this came about and the challenges around making this change? Because it's, to me, it sounded crazy. It's like it's a beer brewery, now they're making hand sanitizer, but like, how did that come about?
So it was heartbreaking, number one. Number two, Peter Bullitt, the owner of Great Lakes, he firmly believes in freshness too. So our whole, like, for years we've used fresh GLB. We have our representatives, we have our bar and restaurants, we have our line cleaning staff. We, everyone out there that works for Great Lakes or knows Great Lakes knows that we don't we don't want anyone to have a bad beer.
Right.
Period. We don't want anyone to have a stale beer, an oxidized beer, so on and so forth. So as soon as all the restrictions were put in place, our sales manager, his name's David Beeman. He's a fantastic, fantastic guy who's been in the industry a long time. He sat with Peter and just said, every beer that we shipped out of here in the last week, every keg, we need to get back. So we sent our staff out across the province to bring back kegs from bars and restaurants. We brought them back to the brewery because we didn't know how long COVID would last back then. You didn't know how
Yeah.
long the shutdown would last. So
We still
Yeah.
don't.
we didn't want someone,
Yeah.
we didn't want someone reopening in 4 months pouring a 5-month-old beer, right? So that was first and foremost. We wanted to get our beer back because we cared about the consumer's experience post shutdown. Then we wanted to talk with the bar and restaurants. We didn't want them sitting on product and having money tied up on a product that they're not going to use. So
Right.
because we care about our consumer or our customers that are going to be pouring that to consumers. So altogether, we just, again, back to the community aspect, we wanted to make sure our community, both consumers at the bar and the customers, the bars buying the beer, we want to make sure everyone would be happy. So we brought them all back, and we got a Health Canada license right away to produce hand sanitizer. Peter reached out to Muskoka Brewery. Big shout out to Todd in Muskoka, who they had a still sitting at the brewery because they do have a distillery as well.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to buy it. I've been meaning to buy it. I want to buy it. This has all happened. What can we do to get this to Great Lakes? They said, we're going to ship it to you guys or come pick it up. We'll talk financials later. So amazing camaraderie to Muskoka. We get it in house. We get our license from Health Canada. Boom, we're dumping kegs into totes, and they were running the tote into the still, making hand sanitizer. We
Right.
donated a whole whack of it to first responders, to some healthcare providers. We worked with Kenrick Pompey at No Wait Medical Foundation to get some proceeds from a beer that features him from his Much Music days. And so we put some money into his pocket to get PPE equipment out to hospitals in the Mississauga region. And then we got the sanitizer right there. Once we started making sanitizer, we said, we have the still, let's get licensed to be a manufacturer of spirits. So get a distillery license. So we worked with the Alcohol and Gaming Commission through COVID, and we received our license. So we can now produce gin, vodka. We can produce spirits at the brewery. So that was a huge pivot, a massive pivot that we did. But it wasn't the biggest one. And I think we can talk about that afterwards, which is our home delivery and online sales.
Yeah, for sure. And that was going to be my next question, actually, in terms of the capability to pivot into different product lines or different situations. I think given 2020, it's kind of like a requirement for businesses to have that back in mind now. So can you talk to us about what you just mentioned there? So you guys have rolled out delivery, and you mentioned something else.
Yeah, so I can vividly recall the day that everything started to shut down. We had a meeting at the brewery, and we said, okay, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
I guess we got to start selling our beer online for the first time in our history.
Right.
A lot of other breweries in this province, a lot of smaller breweries have been or were already doing that. But it was not something we wanted that community feel. We wanted people to come to us, to come into the tap room, to get a can in hand, to talk to a staff, to get, if someone had a question about the beer, they weren't sending an email, they were talking directly to Great Lakes staff. So once COVID hit, we had to pivot very fast, and within 4 days, our retail store manager, Nick Densmore, along with another staff at the brewery, Gabe, they got our online shop up and running. We were already using Shopify for merchandise, but now we just added beer.
Yeah.
And then we had to figure out home delivery and brewery curbside pickup. So we made the decision to shut the physical store down to everyone. We weren't going to open the store. We were going to put all of our bodies on the road. So the first day we went live, it's like we flicked a switch. We put out social media. We wrote blog posts. We said, we are now going to home delivery, and this is our small region that we're going to be going to. And it was 427, Highway 427 in the west to Vic Park in the east, 401 down to the water. So it doesn't seem massive on a map, but think of how many people live in that area.
Yeah, the corridor is pretty big. Yep.
Yeah. The very first day that we flicked that switch, we did 78 home delivery orders. So we were like, okay, we can manage this.
Yep.
Good. So we had myself and the owner, our sales manager, our retail channel manager. We had all managers, all staff in cars doing home deliveries. And by the end of the week, we were up to 200 daily orders.
Wow.
By mid-May, we were doing, and some days we were doing 400 to 500 orders per day, just home delivery.
Wow.
And around April, we decided, okay, we have to alleviate some of this because everyone that we know, we're put beer in cars and let's get out there. We said, okay, let's offer curbside pickup. Canadian Tire and big brands were doing that.
Right.
So we put another option on our website, and we had the first day 300 or something curbside pickups. So we're like, okay, so now we got to manage the message, the communication. We have to. We don't want to piss people off by running out of product. We would put a beer up for an online release at 6:30 or 5:30 on a Wednesday, and it would sell it in 3 minutes. And so we were doing what people wanted of us to do, but we were disappointing some people at the same time because we were selling out so fast. So our pivot has been very successful, and we're very humble for that. very appreciative of all the people. We expanded the territory a bit. So now we go to Scarborough to Rouge River, all the way to the end of Mississauga, the border.
Okay.
I think it's no, I can't even think of the exit there. But anyway, we're selling a lot of beer through home delivery, and we just opened the retail store on Wednesday of this last week. So we had shut down the retail store to physical in-store purchases
Right.
for 6.5 months. So our first customer in 6.5 months came through our front door the other day and purchased beer inside our store, so that we can now have that one-on-one experience again behind plexiglass. But it still was a huge pivot for us, and we were able to adapt fast. Credit to all the staff at the brewery who understood the importance of we got to do something to survive.
Right.
And we pulled out all the stops. We worked around the clock. We hosted Zoom sociables, we called them. So every Tuesday you could have it was like the Brady Bunch. I would moderate, and we'd have 6 or so other Great Lakes staff, and people could just join us for a beer on a
Right.
Tuesday night. And the community came in and sat around the computer, drank beers. We told stories about, behind the scenes stories. And we just kept that community aspect in place through all of this. And the rewards, like you'd show up to someone's house and they'd have on their sidewalk art of our octopus wants to fight IPA. And you'd walk up and they'd say, "We miss you, Great Lakes." And it was so humbling and so amazing and so uplifting in a dark period in Ontario beer, in Ontario in general.
For sure. Yeah, that's amazing. I think you guys have done a lot to kind of pivot and serve the consumers as best as you can. And to everyone who's upset that you guys are running out, it's just a testament to how good your beer is, right? So,
Oh, thanks.
uh,
And you know what we always said too, like think about it beforehand. When we would do a release of a specialty beer, we'd put it in the store, so you'd have to come to the store now, right? And at the start of home delivery, you had to live in the catchment area in order to
Mhm.
order it. As soon as we started offering curbside pickup, if you lived in Kingston, you could literally put in an order online and drive down on the weekend and pick it up.
right.
So we went from, selling out in a week to 2 weeks to 3 hours or
Yeah.
3 minutes, because we opened up the pool to consumers and people in Burlington, for example, who are just outside the catchment area. They may have been putting in big orders for friends and family, and then coming and doing one big pickup. So we learned a lot through the early days of COVID, and
Right.
now it's about managing expectations moving into potentially another big shutdown coming soon. So
For sure. So if Amin didn't get it this weekend, so if he is gonna restock this week, what's
Yeah,
the best way?
honestly, I'm just gonna go to another LCBO to check it out, see if it's there. Otherwise, I'll obviously visit the shop now.
oh, the shop now they are there. You go. Right now, I think
Yeah,
there's 21 different beers available in the store. So you come in, you can't hang around inside. You're in and out, but you will be able to get beer fresh from the source.
right.
21 different
Sure.
beers.
We love it. We'll love it. And when he does it, we'll post it up. But
Yes.
that kind of wraps up like the business side and like the story behind the brand. We wanted to end off with a bit of a lightning round where we kind of just toss you some quick questions and you can answer the first thing that comes to mind.
For sure. Yeah, let's go.
Awesome. So first off, can you tell us your favorite book or movie of all time?
My favorite movie of all time. It changes all the time.
That's fair.
Um, every fall, it's Rudy. It's on Netflix right now too, so you can go and watch Rudy on
Right.
Netflix. I love the story. I love. Again, we talked about the emotional connection. I remember that. I know this is a lightning round. I suck at lightning rounds, but um, we were on a high school football trip, and they played that movie on the bus. And like when they start chanting Rudy at the end, the whole
Right.
bus was chanting Rudy, and it was like that will forever live in my mind. And
Yeah.
so that would be probably, if I had to choose one movie that I would take wherever, I'd probably be Rudy. And Dances with the Wolves is the second one. I love that
Nice.
movie.
Nice.
Awesome. Awesome.
Favorite book? I don't have a favorite book. There's so many good ones out there, and over my life, I've read so many good ones. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint one. I can't even think of one off the top of my head that I would say this is near my favorite. Yeah.
Totally fair. Totally fair. So next up, what is your favorite brew at Great Lakes Brewery? Maybe it's the one you're drinking right now.
It's Canuck Pale Ale. Uh, we have a saying that it's the beer that runs through the bloodstream of all of our employees. So if we were to go to give blood, they'd have to pull a pint of Canuck before they got to the blood.
Right.
But it would be Canuck number one. I am enjoying this beer, Absacker. It's a collaboration beer that we did. We bought some equipment from some companies in Germany. And during the process of buying them, we had a friend in Germany who brought some other friends to the brewery on a trip. And that friend happened to be a brewer, one of the youngest brewers in Germany. From the brewery, I have to look at it. It's Rittmeyer Brewery in Hollendorf, Franconia, Germany. Family-owned brewery since 1422. And this guy came over and like, well, since you're here, do you want to brew a beer with us? And so he spent some time with our brewers and showed them how to do a real authentic German Helles. And I love it. It's so good. But it's really tough because tomorrow I might go to the brewery and go, oh, we have Devil's Pale Ale right now. That's a nostalgic beer. I'll drink one and go, this is my favorite beer right now. So,
Yeah.
but I'd have to Canuck Pale Ale for sure is number one, hands down, my favorite beer.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to try that soon.
It's
Next question.
available. It's available in 400 or so LCBOs
Yeah.
across the province. Yeah.
We love it. We love it. So on that note, with the business itself, throughout your journey, what is probably your favorite memory at GLB?
It's without a doubt, 100%. 2017 is our 30th anniversary.
Right.
And I went to the owner in 2016 and said, let's make a documentary. Let's see if we can find a videographer. We got a guy doing some piecework for us. And we said, okay, this is going to be a big endeavor, but we want to create like a 10-minute documentary, like a 10-minute mini doc. And at the end of shooting, 200 hours of footage and going through all the archives, we have a 45-minute documentary that's available for free download on our Vimeo account, YouTube. You can find it on our website. But we did collaboration brews with beer media, brewers, bar owners, friends and suppliers. We did parties throughout the whole year. And then we had a big debut of this, or premiere, I should say, of this documentary in Etobicoke at the Etobicoke. It's a little independent theater. We rented it out and brought 200 people in to watch this documentary, had beers, and it will be forever my favorite moment. And my cheesy moment is probably just having the interactions with all the our supporters online and offline. Every day is a great memory, and it's a great experience.
For sure. We love that so much. Last but not least, we know that beer pairs well with pizza. So we have to ask you, when you get pizza, do you get pineapple on it or not?
I will get pineapple on pizza if I'm in the mood. So yeah, I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
And
Okay. You hesitated there. So
no, pineapple on pizza. I'm in the pro camp on that, but you got to pair it with a Belgian saison, and you'll get that nice saison yeast, the pepperiness, the bigger carbonation, the creamy mouthfeel, and that works well with the pineapple. So pair them up nicely together with a nice Belgian saison.
we need to feature that because I think that's the most detailed answer about pineapples and pizza that we've got since. And we asked this question to everyone. We asked this question to everyone. So you know your taste. We love it.
Well, now that I say, everyone listening, you got to try pineapple on pizza with a Belgian saison. Doesn't have to be a Great Lakes saison. Go out and find one, and you can thank us later.
Amazing, amazing. Troy, thank you so much for your time. We had so much fun with this, and we're super excited to see where the brewery heads. And I'm super excited to get myself a can this week.
Yeah, no, this has been great fun. It's a great way to spend a day, and I'm gonna go get another beer. Come visit us at the brewery, 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard in Etobicoke. We're open 7 days a week, and follow us on our social. We'll chat.